Hi, my name is Preeti Fernando. Today I will talk to you about how to practice healthy emotional intelligence after COVID-19 social isolation. I'd like to start off with a simple story. It's a fable that I was taught in Montessori kindergarten growing up in Sri Lanka. One day the sun met the wind. The wind boasted of great strength. The sun argued that there was great power in gentleness. "We shall have a contest," said the sun. Far below, a man traveled a winding road. He was wearing a warm winter coat. "As a test of our strength, let us see which one of us can force that man to take off his coat first. It will be quite simple for me. I will use the force of my wind to make him remove his coat," bragged the wind. The wind blew harder and harder. The birds clung to the trees. The leaves blew everywhere. It got colder and colder. The harder the wind blew, the tighter the shivering man clung to his coat. Then the sun came out from behind a cloud. The sun, with all its gentleness and hospitality, warmed the air slowly and brightened up the sky. It became hotter and hotter. Soon the man felt so hot that he took off his coat and sat down in a shady spot. "How did you do that?" said the wind. "It was easy," replied the sun. "I brightened up his day and made him feel warm. Through gentleness and genuineness, I got my way." Emotional intelligence. Simply put, emotional intelligence is how well or how poorly we relate to ourselves and to other people around us. What ripple effects do we create towards thousands of people we may never meet? Emotions without thinking, downhill. It's like downhill skiing and you just go off of a cliff. It's disaster. You show me a person who is emotional and they don't think, they're probably going downhill. I have been that person, so I can talk from personal experience. Emotions with wrong thinking is also downhill. So, how do you go uphill? When you have emotions with right thinking. My dear friends, emotions by and large equal the heart. Thoughts, by and large, equal the mind. The heart plus mind can be a powerful combo if it is bundled right. Did you know the greatest champions in business win with their emotions and not with logic? Emotional intelligence is the unique intersection of the heart over the mind. If you look at some of the advertisements, either online or on television, you'll notice that some of the corporations, their ads are very emotionally driven. They make a powerful emotional connection. For 5 months and counting, people have been in shutdown mode when it came to their emotions because of COVID-19, coronavirus, at the time of this recording. Avoiding human contact, wearing face masks, maintaining social distancing 6 feet apart, working from home, minimizing direct face-to-face encounters have been prescribed as the way to go. Sometimes showing those feelings and building trust is difficult while wearing a mask, while being 6 feet apart, socially distanced and working from home. As a replacement to the human connection, the screen connection has become the substitute. For example, I'm talking to you from a screen. Typically, I would have delivered this at a live conference, but now I am talking to you across a screen. The more we are connected electronically, the less we are connected emotionally. The more we are connected electronically, the less we are connected emotionally. COVID-19 has deprived us of the closeness We're biologically programmed to seek when we are vulnerable, lonely, or fearful, exactly when we need it the most. Especially as healthcare professionals, you yourself need the biological closeness from someone you feel close to in order to prevent burnout and boredom. Personal protective equipment make it harder to see facial expressions and body movement, while social distancing forces us to be unnaturally apart, and the invisible presence of the virus has infused touch with a sense of danger. And in healthcare, that sense of touch can be vital, especially when someone is vulnerable. And even if you do touch, it's under layers of different types of PPE. That biological closeness that we long for, especially when we are vulnerable, has been dampened. Here is a case in point, just as what life was like before this and after. I have not shaken hands with anyone since the early part of March, and that was the last time I spoke at a live conference. And when I have been speaking at live events, it was very standard that I would shake hands or I would give a hug if it's someone that was more familiar to me, and I would have that closeness. I have not shaken hands with anyone since early March. When was the last time you shook hands, your bare hands with someone? Maybe you have been around people and you have been doing that more frequently. Different people have their different setup when it comes to social distancing. How many of you have left a job not because of the pay, but because of how you are made to feel? The coworker treated you like dirt. It was toxic. A lot of snickering and things going on behind your back. Oftentimes, we forget what a person told us or what they did to us. We rarely forget how they made us feel. When I look at my own life, the events, the comments, situations that had the most powerful impact on my life had to do with how I was made to feel. Our emotions get triggered differently, and different emotions can have different effects on us. Sometimes disgust can be a powerful emotion if you handle it right. You were so disgusted with that situation that you wanted to find something very different. You were so disgusted with what was going on that you decided to use all that for a better future. Whatever the situation may be, disgust, if handled right, can be a powerful, productive emotion. The concept of hospital itself has a stressful association. And some of you may be working within a hospital, some of you may be at the administrative level, whatever your attachment to or link to a hospital may be. Usually, when someone is told that they are being taken to hospital, it triggers a different set of emotions. It's different when you tell someone they're going on a camping trip. It's different when you tell a 3-year-old they're going to the playground. The emotions that a camping trip or a playground trigger are different from the emotions that are triggered when you tell someone they're going to hospital. The body itself as a baseline is set, and the mind itself is set in a different way when you tell someone that they've been taken to hospital. The more empathy the patient feels, the better their potential immune response. What's more, the stronger you feel emotionally, the better your chances of survival for the most part. I'm not saying that every single time that someone feels that empathy that they're going to survive. That's not what I'm going to say. But stronger the chances of survival. So it's a two-way street. When the patient shows better immune response, it does something to you as a healthcare professional, and it does something to the patient emotionally. So both sides benefit. The behavior of healthcare staff has a powerful role because we catch the other person's emotions, kind of like the dream catcher. If the healthcare provider is angry, stressed, and irritable, that will create angst in the part of the patient. It's like an emotional contagion. Emotions like the COVID-19 virus are contagious. Emotions are contagious, very contagious. We may not know the type of effect our emotions, our reactions, our responses have on someone else. They are contagious, and especially in a healthcare setting, they are ultra contagious. If you show your patients trust, your patients are likely to catch that trust. If you show lack of trust, your patients are likely to catch that lack of trust. Same thing in our personal relationships, don't you think? Think about some relationship that you have. Maybe there's someone that you trust completely, and then maybe there's someone that you feel a little iffy about. You might want to do certain things, not do certain things, say certain things, not say certain things. Emotions, like the COVID-19 virus, are contagious. So, how to practice healthy emotional intelligence in a COVID-19 modified work environment? We are at a time where many people feel emotionally starved. There's been heavy emphasis on screen communication that leaves us starved. There's heavy emphasis on minimizing social contact that leaves us emotionally starved. And so employers, supervisors, CEOs, managers have to go on overdrive to rekindle their flicker of emotional intelligence. The office environment has to be physically, non-physically modified in order to ease into a COVID-19 modified work environment. Almost everyone listening right now might have been negatively impacted by the COVID-19 virus to some degree. It could be health-wise, maybe you know someone or you yourself got infected. It could be financial because you have difficulty paying rent. You have difficulty paying your mortgage. You have entered a forbearance period on your mortgage and that has come to an end. You may be with a person who has lost their job and they are on unemployment, and that could be leading to different financial situations. You may be facing eviction, already evicted. You may have had to take in a family member that you may like, you may enjoy and get along with. It may be a family member that you don't like and you don't get along with. And you have to now take them in because they have had problems, and that's creating living situations that can be negative on your life. All kinds of dynamics have arisen, and to some level, every person pretty much listening right now has been negatively impacted by COVID-19. I can tell you very honestly, my life has been turned upside down in different areas because of COVID-19. For example, my whole speaking career came to an end in early March because nobody was scheduling live large conferences, and that's what I was doing, and I was speaking, and now I'm not doing that. And in other ways, financially, it has had an impact on me. Physically, it has changed my life in different ways. Emotionally, it has had a tremendous impact. So different people have been impacted in different ways. COVID-19 has dragged nearly every person to their brink of patience, acceptance, and hope. The virus has exposed the vulnerability of people, and we are still living through it. It's still foggy out there at the time of this recording. There are moments, my dear friends, which mark our lives, moments where we realize that nothing will be the same. After that moment, life is divided into two: before and after the event. COVID-19 created that moment for many people, and for many of you listening, it has created that moment. A post COVID 19 work environment has created people who are filled with many needs and wants because they have all been made vulnerable. As professionals in healthcare, guess the people that people first turn to when they have needs and wants. They turn to you, they turn to the healthcare professional. Whether you're in HR, ER, PR, in supply chain, revenue cycle, trauma, whatever your job department may be, people see healthcare professionals as caregivers. When we fail to show that, it creates almost like an automatic mistrust, like an automatic betrayal that we might experience because healthcare is seen as a caregiving profession for the most part. The truth is, you as a healthcare professional are human. You also have needs and wants just like them. The key in emotional intelligence, especially during this COVID 19 environment, is that balance. Yes, they need you. You also have your own needs. So, to be able to take care of yourself is important in order to be fully available to someone else. COVID 19 has made emotional intelligence more important than ever today, especially with the screen connection that has been promoted with Zoom conferencing, Zoom meetings, Zoom virtual huddles, with the heavy emphasis on screen time. We are more connected electronically, we are less connected emotionally. We have to go on overdrive to rekindle that emotional intelligence. Here's a life tip for all of you, my dear friends. Whether it's your cleaning staff who cleans the toilet, whether it's your CEO who flies in his own $15 million Cessna Learjet, or your accountant who looks at a screen 12 hours a day, simply assume that every person you encounter during the day is wearing a flashing neon sign that blinks, "Make me feel important. Make me feel important." At the end of the day, my dear friends, each and every person listening right now have a yearning to be treated with dignity. They have a yearning to feel validated. Characteristics of an emotionally intelligent person. If you have all the characteristics that we're going to talk about, good for you. If you don't have, good for you. If you have all these qualities, my dear friends, I personally don't think you need this message. You probably need therapy because it is impossible to have all these qualities at the same time at a given period of time. Characteristics of an emotionally intelligent person. 1. People with high emotional intelligence are people oriented. They're comfortable being around others. Other people feel comfortable being around them. 2. They demonstrate empathy. And right now, in a COVID 19 modified work environment, practicing empathy, especially in healthcare, is critical. 3. Openness and transparency are important to them. They don't play games. When you work with people who don't play games, there's no manipulation. There's no situations where you're second guessing. They don't leave your head spinning because they say what they mean what they say. 4. Emotionally intelligent people don't make permanent decisions based on temporary emotions. Neither do they make crisis decisions because they know that crisis decisions are never good decisions. They exude grace under pressure. They know how to effectively tackle anger in the workplace. They know when to say no. They maintain boundaries. They pay attention to that aftertaste. And finally, they have outstanding people skills. How many of you listening have all those 10 qualities at the same time? I will tell you, I don't have many of those, and I'm still working hard to improve myself. Emotionally intelligent people practice this customer service principle, and I know each and every one of you listening right now practice this principle. They leave people, places, and jobs better than they found them. They leave a good aftertaste. You know, my friends, what I mean by aftertaste? You know what it is like? Sometimes you have a really good a hamburger, and it creates that aftertaste for for a sip of that cool Coca-Cola. You know that feeling? That's what I mean by aftertaste. Once you take a bite of that burger, it creates that aftertaste where you have a yearning for a sip of that cool Coca-Cola or whatever the soda it may be. They leave people, places, and jobs better than they found them in any encounter, whether it's an email, whether it's a social media post, LinkedIn post, a response to a LinkedIn comment, uh, whether it be a phone call, face-to-face interaction, whatever it may be. That aftertaste they leave, by and large, for the most part, leaves people in a better state. They are lifters. They understand a very basic human principle that in any encounter that they leave a good aftertaste. It's about how you make another person feel long after that encounter has taken place. You know how it is, sometimes you look back at certain events in your life and you tell, I never forgot how that person's comment made me feel, or I never forgot that person's comment when I shared my story. The comment was one thing, but the reason you remember it years later is because of how it made you feel. Individuals with strong emotional intelligence are able to predict behavior, relate to others, prevent situations from escalating into crisis, and socialize easily. People skills are also known as soft skills, interpersonal skills, social skills, emotional intelligence, and interpersonal intelligence. Pay attention to your word choice. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. Here is an example. What's troubling you? What's wrong with you? You're intending the same thing. The way you're heard by someone can vastly vary. What's troubling you versus what's wrong with you? The first one, what's troubling you, is creates more empathy, creates more sensitivity, makes a better emotional connection. Of course, it also depends on the other person and how they receive it. Sometimes you can say everything with the right level of sensitivity and empathy, and it might not have an impact. But by and large, pay attention to your word choice. How to force yourself to become emotionally healthy when you're being socially distanced. That's our topic in this meeting. Force yourself to talk to someone while maintaining that 6 feet distance. For example, if you're working remotely from home and it's been 4 months and counting, and you live alone and you feel that lack of interaction, you need to go on overdrive. You need to force yourself to talk to someone. It could be a family member. If you don't have a family member that you feel close enough to talk to, that's all right. It could be a friend. If you don't have a friend, that's all right. It could be a neighbor. If you don't have a neighbor, that's all right. It could be a cashier at the grocery store, and just say hi and just practicing our vocal cords, making that eye contact, the things that make us biologically programmed as social beings. Practice those at least once a day. Next, if you feel overwhelmed by screen time, then balance it by deliberately setting aside a few hours a day, or at least a few minutes a day, to stay away from telephones, televisions, and streaming devices. 3. Get connected with Mother Nature. Gardening, fishing, cooking from scratch. Rather than getting the pre-made meals delivered to your doorstep, cook a meal from scratch. Those are the things that get us more alive. more rejuvenated. Video fatigue and emotional intelligence. Are you feeling that video fatigue, that video burnout? Feeling emotional fatigue after months of video conferencing can be a normal state right now. So many Zoom calls, so many presentations to watch like this one. Here are some steps to feel emotionally rejuvenated when you feel fried on screen time. 1. Take a break from the video conferencing at work. If you're working remotely, same thing goes for you. Can you have a non-work related phone conversation with someone? Can you have a non-work related socially distanced face-to-face conversation with someone? Maybe you can go for a walk with someone. Next, get connected with Mother Nature to clear out the clutter. Sometimes the more we are socially isolated, the mental clutter, it's easy to creep in. Kind of like if you neglect cleaning your kitchen. After one meal, 2 meals, after a week, all the dishes get cluttered, right? Same thing goes to us mentally. Same thing goes to us emotionally. If we don't consistently, on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, keep cleaning and things get clogged emotionally, mentally, it can get cluttered. Just as we would clean up the dishes, many might clean up the dishes, just as we might brush our teeth on a daily basis, we have to find outlets to clean out the clutter emotionally uh, and mentally. One of those ways is to get connected with Mother Nature. If you have a yard, go outside if the weather is good, do some gardening, touch some soil, do some weeding. It may not be the funnest thing, but actually weeding can be healthy, and it might give you, if you have been wearing the mask all day, even the aroma of dirt can be aromatic right now because you have been behind a mask. If you're in the front lines, you have been wearing the mask for so long that when you take out your mask and go to the yard and touch some dirt, even the smell of dirt might be very pleasant because you're inhaling it. Maybe go for a walk, do some yoga, or water the plants, whatever it may be to get you connected with Mother Nature. Here's another way. Make a meal from scratch. You know those recipe books that your grandma, great grandma passed down over the years? Over past 20 years or 50 years that's been gathering dust in the basement. Now is the time to open up that box, get that book out, bring it upstairs, bring it to your kitchen and look at it and make a meal from scratch. Don't look at a screen for a meal because that's supplementing your screen time. You may already be on screen overload. So don't supplement even that break you're trying to get. Don't supplement it with more screen time, but rather do it in a different way. Flip open a book. Or maybe write down the recipe from a screen. Plant some flowers. Find a hobby that is non-screen related. Growing orchids, doing bonsai, scrapbook making, quilt making. These are some examples. Going back to basics. Getting reconnected essentially means going back to basics. Are those home delivered pizzas getting old? Why not cook a meal from scratch? You don't know how to cook? That's when you get that recipe book. Some of you may feel like you're working more from home than you did when you commuted to work. Do you feel like that? If you do, find ways to break that sense of the long length of time. Take frequent breaks. Rather than working 8 hours non-stop in front of a computer, take a few breaks to every 2 to 3 hours. I'm not saying take an hour break, but every 2 to 3 hours, maybe organize your schedule so that you can, if you have children, maybe you drop off your child to the soccer game. Maybe drop them off at the library if the library is open. Maybe during the current times. That's why I said if the library is open. Maybe walk around the block. Whatever it may be, take frequent breaks. Have a snack. Let's move on to tears and emotional intelligence. Crying and emotional intelligence. How many of you have cried at work, my dear friends? I have. I have cried more than once at work for various reasons. Sometimes it's because I really didn't like the job I was at that time, and I still stayed at the job because I needed the money. Sometimes it's because of what I was going through in my personal life, and sometimes it's hard to detach my personal life from my professional life. Sometimes it's because of a supervisor or a coworker that made life extremely unpleasant at the workplace. Various reasons that I have cried at work. Think of a time, if you have cried at work, think of a time that you cried at work. How did your supervisor or your coworker respond if they saw you cry? Maybe you have cried and you did it quietly in your cubicle. Maybe you did it in the bathroom because you didn't want anyone to see. But if they saw you, how did they respond? How do you wish they responded? How did they make you feel? Some of their responses, did you feel like opening up to them? What kind of aftertaste? Remember, we were talking about that aftertaste? What kind of aftertaste did they create for you so that when you returned to work the next day, you felt rejuvenated, you felt more loyal to that workplace, or you felt less loyal to that employer because of the way you were treated when you cried? So these are some of the things that refer to tears and emotional intelligence. How we handle tears at work is an indication of our level of emotional intelligence. Tears are an outward manifestation of an inward emotional stress. I feel that I am more emotional. I tend to cry. I don't know if it's because I'm a woman. I don't know. But it seems like some people tend to cry easier than others. Maybe sometimes some men may have a hard time crying, and they may be crying inwardly, and that crying comes out in the form of anger or sometimes violence, sometimes burying it inside, sometimes for years burying it inside. Maybe even women do that. As for me, I know that I have cried more than once at work, and I seem to be I seem to be an emotional creature, that I have had those outbursts at work. Sometimes we don't know how to respond to another person's tears. Sometimes people have a hard time crying, so they suppress it. Sometimes the pains of life have toughened us up to such a degree that we have forgotten what feelings are, or that we have forgotten how to cry, because some people may have come up with their own mechanism, their own survival method to bury the feelings and not process those feelings. Because if we process the feelings, it might be too scary, it might be too overwhelming. Sometimes we cannot relate to another person's pain. How we handle tears at work can make or break trust in work environments. Be mindful of how you handle tears at work, my dear friends, especially in a COVID-19 modified work environment, because people are on high sensory alert for the most part, especially in healthcare. People are going through all kinds of changes. It could be health changes, it could be emotional changes, it could be sexual changes, it could be financial changes, it could be physical changes, changes in their dwelling environment. They are selling their home, or they are facing eviction, whatever it may be, all kinds of changes. And these kind of abrupt and massive changes, it's only normal to leave the people feeling emotionally on high sensory alert. It's kind of like if you have a wound right here and you pinch right where the wound is, it would hurt a lot than if you pinched somewhere else. That's because right there it's more sensitive. It's on high sensory alert. So that's kind of where people are in the COVID-19 modified environment. They're on higher sensory alert, they're on a higher level of sensitivity. and they are more likely to cry, they are more likely to have outbursts. When another employee has cried at work, in this case we're talking about the office setting, when an employee has cried at work, when a supervisor has cried at work, how did you respond? Give a tissue. Let's talk about this after the morning meeting. Would you like to have some quiet time? What's troubling you? Instead of what's wrong with you? What can I do to make you feel better? Give them space. Sometimes don't say or don't do anything at all. It's not to say you're going into freeze mode. Not going into freeze mode, because if you go into freeze mode, that might come across as showing complete lack of feeling, lack of empathy. Sometimes people just don't want you to say anything. They just want you to leave them alone. Give them space. So those are some things you can do as an emotionally intelligent person to practice healthy emotional intelligence when someone cries at work. Some things you should not do when a person cries. Don't give them a link to a website that tells them how to handle tears at work. At least don't give it at that moment. Maybe you can give it 5 months later when that situation has abated, when that person has calmed down and is in a rational state of mind. Right at the moment when their feelings are raw, it's like that wound. You don't want to be giving links to websites on how to handle tears at work. I have had that happen to me at a very desperate moment in my life. I had someone do that, and I know how it made me feel. And for me to talk about that years later, it tells what a strong impact it had on me in a negative way when someone did that. Don't laugh when someone cries. Don't tweet about it. Hey, Mike cried at work today. Haha. No, not cool. We don't tweet about it. Don't go into freeze mode. Don't gossip about it. There's no need to gossip about it. Make an emotional connection with another person's brokenness. Pretty much everyone that you meet is broken and fighting a hard battle out there, especially now with COVID-19. They're broken in their finances, broken in their relationship with a spouse, partner, children, or aging parents, or a family that they have taken in. Broken in their sexual lives, broken in their thinking, but most of all, broken from themselves. Make an emotional connection with that brokenness. It's one of the strongest marketing tools you will ever make. They may not tell you, my dear friends, which area of their lives they feel broken at. For one thing, they may not feel that connected to you. They may not trust you that you would keep it to themselves if they told you. They may not trust you enough that you may respond in a healthy way. So they may not tell you why they feel broken. Everyone right now is broken in some area in a COVID-19 environment. Right now, with COVID-19, many people feel financially broken. Let's talk about how to practice healthy emotional intelligence when someone has a money problem because of a situation related to COVID-19. That someone may be you listening right now. Maybe you have a certain money problem or financial situation that could be minor, that could be major. It's relative. What you see as minor could be major to someone else. What you see as major could be minor financial problem to someone else. There's no clear-cut way to handle money problems in a COVID-19 work environment. The answer will vary. So here are some thoughts. So let's say someone that you're working with, a friend, a family member, whoever it may be, they cannot pay rent. They cannot pay utilities. They are unable to pay their mortgage. So they come to you, and you are also struggling with a similar area. Maybe you cannot pay your rent, you cannot pay your mortgage, you cannot make the car payment. How do you empathize, show sensitivity, and still maintain boundaries? Here are some thoughts. 1. I'm sorry that you're going through this. Say it. Say it, even though their problem may seem smaller than yours. Maybe for that person, a financial problem is that they are not able to take the vacation to Europe that they planned, and they are sobbing about it. And for you, your problem may be that you are 2 months late on your mortgage, and you're thinking, well, I'm not able to pay my mortgage, and you are saying you cannot take your vacation to Europe. For you, your problem is bigger, right? It's your dwelling place. For them, their vacation is bigger. You may feel like, well, my problem is bigger. Well, rather than saying, well, what's the big deal about that? You're talking of your vacation, and here I'm struggling to pay my mortgage or my rent. As a sign of healthy emotional intelligence, train yourself to say, I'm sorry you're going through this. This makes an empathetic connection. This makes an emotional connection. Say that statement with sincerity, not with sarcasm, with sincerity. Don't make it seem like you're reading off of a script. You know how it is sometimes you call certain companies about money and they read off of a script. We're sorry you're going through this pain. Let's see what we can do to help. Have you ever had that experience? I have. I know what it is like. You don't want to come across as though you're reading off a script like a robot. You want to show that humanness. People have had enough of all the automated machines at this point. They want to have a touch of that humanness. This is how you show empathy, when you say something with sincerity. Next, be prepared to give them 5 to 10 minutes of your time to listen to their problem. Sometimes the greatest gift, my dear friends, that you can give someone is the gift of time. Sometimes what people need the most is someone to talk to, knowing that someone is there to listen to them. Some people might expect you to fix all their problems with a magic wand in a second, and so that they can be spared of the pain of working through the problem. Some people might expect you to write a check to take care of their problem. Not everyone expects that, though. Sometimes what people want from you is that they know that you're listening to them. So to listen means to give time. To actively listen to someone shows engagement. You have to be engaged, and you give them your gift of time. Many places are being proactive about working with people about bills. Let that person know that there are places out there that are trying to proactively help. Maybe it's an association, maybe it's a government branch, maybe it's a church. Get them connected with that. In this case, giving them a link to that website is a positive, helpful step. Giving a link to a website in this case. Do you know of a person or a place that's helping right now? Get them connected. Do they have trouble with English? Maybe they cannot read or write English. In that case, they may not be able to fill out the application form. How would you show healthy emotional intelligence in a situation like that? If you can give half of your time to do that, good for you. If you cannot, get them connected with an association or a person who can give them the time and help them with that. This is how you help someone to help themselves without giving it. It's like teach a man how to fish rather than giving fish. You're empowering them to help themselves. If appropriate, tell them this too shall pass. Sometimes that statement might be too harsh given the calamity of what a person might be going through at that time, maybe a collection of tragic things. And if you say this too shall pass, sometimes it can be rather pokey. But sometimes it can be reassuring, it can be hopeful. Also, remind them that richness is not just about money. Richness is not just about money. Just because someone cannot pay their rent, just because someone has not paid rent since April, does not mean they are poor. Remind them of that. Hey, Michelle, I know you have not paid your rent since April. This does not mean you're poor. I see you as a very rich person, Michelle. I see you as a very rich person because you have taken in your mother, your 90-year young mother, to live with you, and you have been caring for her for the past 6 years. That is richness in my eyes. That makes you a rich person. So don't feel poor because you have not paid rent since April. Say a statement like that. Remember that aftertaste we were talking about? That's how we create that aftertaste where Michelle feels a little better, where she feels emotionally a little cleaner, where she feels like a clutter has been lifted when she hears that. She may not hear that from anyone. You may be the only person who says things like that. Wouldn't you have liked to have heard a statement like that when you were at a very down point, when you felt like you were poor? And someone said, hey, you're not poor because you cannot pay off your credit card bill. You are rich because you are taking care of a spouse who is having health needs, whatever it may be. So those are some ways to practice healthy emotional intelligence in a COVID-19 environment when someone expresses money problems to you. Emotionally intelligent people understand the difference between area of choice versus area of giftedness. In area of choice, you can make vast and fast improvement within a very short period of time. Usually areas of choice are related to our emotions. If your weakness is to blurt out things with your mouth that you regret later, is that an area of choice or area of giftedness? Where some of you might say that's a gift. For some people, that's actually an area of choice. I truly don't believe that we are born with a bad tongue. As an infant, I don't think an infant is born with a bad tongue. These are things that shape the experiences that we have and the type of habits that we pick up with those closest to us, what we see as a defense mechanism. And those could be some of the causes that lead to us blurting out things that we might regret later. I have had that. I have had to deal with that for many years, and I have experience of how to tame my tongue. I'm still working at it. I also know that sometimes saying things that we might regret later, the kind of damage control that we might have to go on. Sometimes the damage we may never know that we cause towards ourselves, towards our careers, towards the community. Areas of choice versus area of giftedness. If I had continued in that trend, my dear friends, of having a bad tongue, of just blurting out things that could have been hurtful to people, I would not be speaking to you through a presentation like this today. I had to arrive at a realization the damage that my mouth and some of the words that I was saying was causing to me. I had to come at that realization and then take a step back and see what I needed to do to fix it. And that was an area of choice that I was able to turn around. I'm still working at it. It's not like the problem is permanently fixed. I have made progress, and I now use my tongue. I now use my words for speaking events, to talk to people, to speak at different events, rather than to use my words to say meaningless things that could create harm to other people, that could hurt other people. No one really benefited in the long run. In areas of choice, our growth can be vast and fast. So if you have a patience issue, if you have an anger issue, it's an area of, please answer, is it an area of choice or an area of giftedness? It's an area of choice. Can you fix it? Please answer. Yes, if you want to. It's vast and fast growth. First step is to come to that realization, and then what steps do we take to fix it? Area of giftedness, our growth is slow. It's very slow. Here is an example to simplify it. If you have never had piano lessons in your life and you suddenly want to play an advanced level, Mozart sonata, is it possible to learn it within 3 days and perform at Carnegie Hall? Probably not. Sometimes to arrive at that level of classical piano training, you have to start when you're small, age 5, age 6, age 8, and practice, consistent practice, and the right coaching. A lot of factors that go into play to be able to arrive at a point of playing, of performing a Mozart or a Rachmaninoff piece in front of a live audience. It takes years of training. That's an area of giftedness. It's a talent, it's a skill, the right coaching that has to be cultivated over a period of time. So it's an area of giftedness. If you have never skied in your life before and you want to make it to the Winter Olympics, can you do it within 6 months? Probably not. It's an area of giftedness, a skill that has to be honed, that has to be cultivated over a period of time. You have to be around the ski slopes a lot, have coaching, and it's a lot of training that people undergo to arrive at that point. So those are areas of giftedness. DNA, wiring, giftedness, your growth is very small and slow. In areas of giftedness, my dear friends, work on your strengths. Pour yourself into things you're already good at. Outsource the things that you are not good at. That will set you apart. So, for example, if your software program is not working right, then if you have no clue about how to create a new program, then hire someone to do it rather than spending 3 years trying to figure it out and it doesn't turn out to be good anyways. So areas of giftedness, your growth is slow. Areas of choice, whether it's taming a tongue, like I did, and I'm still working on it, whether it's an anger issue, whether it's a patience issue, those are areas of choice. Your growth can be vast and fast. And here's the interesting thing that I have found, my dear friends. Oftentimes, sadly enough, it's only just 1 or 2 areas of our lives that wreaks havoc in many other areas of your life. Think about someone you know, or maybe this is the person you know. You may be the person you know. You tell yourself, I wish she just fixes that thing in her life. And she has all this talent. She has all this potential. She has the whole future. And all that will fall into place. I wish he would take care of this one problem in his attitude, in the way he deals with people, and so many other things. We can appreciate everything else that he's doing, whatever it may be. That's an area of choice. When you think that way, that's an area of choice. If they fix their temper issue, so many things, they can be a very different person to be around. If they fix their issue of constantly being manipulative and creating distraction, then so many people can earn their trust because they know that they can trust that person from now on. So areas of choice can always be changed and addressed. Emotionally intelligent people prepare for crisis situations ahead of time. Crisis decisions are never good decisions. Crisis decisions, never good decisions. This works in our personal lives. This works in our professional lives. I look at some of the decisions I made in crisis mode, and they had disastrous consequences for the next 10 years of my life. The COVID-19 crisis, however, is something no one could have anticipated. It was the tsunami that legends predicted would come every 100 years. Could you have prepared your staff, your mind, your thinking, your clients your hospital to adequately prepare for the COVID-19 crisis? No, it simply was not possible. So when I talk about crisis, I'm not necessarily talking about crisis of the COVID-19 magnitude. I'm talking about a lesser magnitude crisis situations like someone is going to quit and you see the signs. Don't wait till they don't show up for work one day. That's going to put you into crisis mode. And then you might not think rationally and you hire someone who's going to create more damage. So rather than waiting for that crisis, you put an ad on LinkedIn ahead of time. By anticipating the crisis before it happens, you spend more time preparing, less time repairing. More time prepare, less time repair. Emotionally intelligent people spend more time preparing, less time repairing. Think of the windshield and the rearview mirror. The windshield is 20 times larger than the rearview mirror. We drive forward, preparing the larger picture, the panoramic picture. We look behind at the rearview mirror every once in a while to make sure we are not repeating the same mistakes over and over. Let's move on to the peak to peak principle. Has anyone read the book by Robert Schuller called Peak to Peak? And if you haven't, that's all right. You can read it if you like. You can gift it to your 20-year-old or 60-year-old or 40-year-old child who might be at a time in their lives when they're asking, why do all the wrong things keep happening to me? Maybe you can gift it to a parent, your 80-year young mother or father, your 90-year young mother or father feels like all the wrong things have been happening to them. What is the peak to peak principle? Very simple. There are some people who go from peak to peak, from success to success, without ever seeming to fail. Don't you know someone? Everything they touch turns to gold. They have the Midas touch. Problems, tragedies never seem to strike them. And then there are others. They literally go from bad decision to bad decision. They throw their education away, the one you spent 200 grand working at your current job to pay for. They go from one toxic relationship to another. They're in credit card debt, and it's always someone else's fault. It seems like trouble always follows them on Instagram. If that person that I just described is you or your adult child, please don't despair. I too was that person for 22 years. Why do you think trouble always follows certain people like a hurricane and good fortune follow others like a loyal dog follows its master? It's called the peak to peak principle. I didn't come up with that term. Please don't give me the credit. Robert Schuller did. We go from valley to the peak, the ebb and flow of life. Everything is in a state of flux. Our emotions are down and up like a roller coaster. The peak to peak principle says if you want to be an effective leader, an effective decision maker, if you want to make the right decision, especially in times of a crisis, and we are in a crisis right now with COVID-19, never make a decision until you are on top of a peak emotionally. That's the peak to peak principle. Very simple. Never make life altering, mind altering, job altering, mood altering, emotions altering decisions when you're in a valley. Wait till you make the ascent to the peak. That could be 24 minutes of waiting. That could be 2 minutes of waiting. That could be 10 seconds of waiting. That could be 2 years of waiting. That could be 5 years of waiting. What do I mean by that? Let's say a co-worker or a family member or a supervisor says something that is completely unfair. And in the past, they know that's how to get you into an argument. And you get wound up and you say things and you yell things. And in the past, that has cost you a lot. In this case, according to the peak to peak principle, you're emotionally raw. Wait for 10 seconds. Reach out for the Tic Tacs. Tic Tacs can be lifesavers at times like that. Wait for 10 seconds. So in this case, the peak to peak principle is wait till you're in an emotional peak, emotional top. If you respond right away, that could be you're in an emotional valley. In that case, it could be 10 seconds of biting your tongue. I have had to force myself to learn this, my friends, because I was on autopilot, just blurting out things that would cause damage later on. In some cases, it could be 2 minutes of waiting. rather than hitting send on an email, typing something that you'd regret later, or they could forward that email to 200 other people that could cost you a job or your reputation. 2 minutes of waiting before writing something when your emotions are raw. Wait till you hit an emotional peak. Sometimes it could be 2 days of waiting. You're sitting on an email without responding at all. You're sitting on a decision without responding right away. Sometimes it could be 2 years of waiting if you're thinking of leaving your town. If you're thinking of relationship change status, it could be 2 years of waiting. What is the reasoning behind this? When you're on top of a mountain, you see the panoramic picture. You get the broader picture, you see the valley below, you have better vision. You make better decisions. When you're in an emotional peak, you make better, stronger, more informed decisions. When you're in the valley, you can barely see beyond 2 feet. There's turbulence around you, there's chaos around you. We make damaging decisions when we are in the valley. We make powerful decisions when we are in the peak. That's the peak to peak principle. We make powerful decisions when we are in the peak, mountain top. We make damaging decisions when we are in the valley. Peak to peak principle. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for listening. Visit my website at preethifernando, preethifernando.com, and please share this video, and please join me on LinkedIn. Send me an invite, and I wish each and every one of you good health, peace of mind, and financial prosperity. Thank you for listening.